It's election day, and as we always say right here on The Balance, every single vote matters. Polls just now closing in Mississippi, and an hour ago in Kentucky, where Andy Beshear, the Democrat incumbent, is projected to win. And tonight, we have all the results for you as soon as they come in, which are sure to provide clues about the national mood heading into the all-important 2024 election. We'll also talk to Ohio Congressman Jim Jordan and Texas Senator Ted Cruz. But first, let's check in with our election desk and Jen Pellegrino. Take it away, Jen.
All right. Thanks, Eric. Great to see you tonight here with Senator Rick Santorum, Rob Astorino, watching these races closely. 8 p.m., just after 8 p.m. here on the East Coast. We've seen the polls close in Mississippi, where we're looking at Republican incumbent Tate Reeves up against Democrat Public Service Commissioner Brandon Presley, who also happens to be a cousin of Elvis Presley. Senator, what do you expect tonight in the state of Mississippi?
This would be a real shocker if Mississippi turns. Look, Tate Reeves has had some problems. He was tied to a scandal when he was lieutenant governor that has clouded his campaign a little bit. But Mississippi is it's not a big scandal. He's done a good job. He's governed as a conservative. And I suspect it may be closer than a typical race in Mississippi, but I suspect he'll survive.
Okay, of course, we've also called in Kentucky. Democrat Andy Beshear has also taken that race. But let's talk about abortion. That's the issue throughout the evening. It's on the ballot in Ohio. It's obviously driving voters out. Rob, how much of an issue is this now in this election compared to what we saw in 22 in the midterms, and what does it mean for 24?
Well, it's a question mark. You know, in some states last year, like in Georgia, where the Democrats are playing abortion, 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 Brian Kemp ran 10 points ahead and won it big, you know, and he's pro-life. So I think it depends on the top of the ticket and what the other issues are. This was solely on abortion, period. There was nothing else really to go out to vote for other than marijuana. But there wasn't a top of the ticket to vote for, so there were no other dynamics. And obviously, they poured a ton of money into this race. I mean, an absurd amount. I think it was like $70 million spent in Ohio on this ballot proposition. So the left is geared up for this issue. It's the only issue they have this year. Nothing else is going for them. So this is the only thing that they can gin up their base. And clearly, they're trying to get the young vote out and try to get them conditioned for next year. But this was a big, you know, it was a big loss for pro-life in a red state like Ohio, but it's not something we haven't seen in previous states, including red states, where abortion became an issue.
Yeah, certainly drives out the voters. Gentlemen, I think we have to leave it there, but we will be back with you, Eric, later in the hour. Eric Bowling, my friend, I'm going to send it back to you.
Thank you, Jen. We'll get back with you in just a few minutes. Thank you so much. Today's truth becomes more Orwellian by the day. George Orwell's book, 1984, warned us about the consequences of totalitarianism and mass surveillance, where the government dictates what you can say, even what you can think. Orwell wrote, 1984 is a cautionary tale about the dangers of censorship, and slowly but surely we're uncovering that right here in our own country. Ohio Congressman and House Judiciary Chair Jim Jordan said Monday that the federal government, disinformation experts at universities, big tech, and others work together to monitor and censor Americans' speech during the 2020 election. Among those targeted, former President Donald Trump, Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene, Congressman Tom Massey, and conservative media outlets, including yours truly, Newsmax. The most egregious peddlers of disinformation are often the ones who work so hard to accuse their political and ideological opponents of that very crime. But congressional members like Congressman Jim Jordan are not letting them get away with it, and he joins us now. Chairman, good to have you, sir. The whole idea, you know, this whole idea, we know we've got a weaponized FBI against conservatives. We know we've got a weaponized legal system, and we'll just look at what's going on with Donald Trump and others. Now, do we have a weaponized press, too?
Yeah, well, it was big government working with big academia and big tech to censor speech, to go after Americans' First Amendment rights, their First Amendment free speech rights, and it was disproportionately targeted to conservatives, like the ones you mentioned, and, of course, the network that you work for. So this is how bad it was. And, again, in a country where you have the First Amendment, this is not supposed to happen. Now, the good news is we're catching them. I think that's, you know, we're highlighting this. I think that's making a difference. And we got that great court decision a few months ago down on the Fifth Circuit, which talked about how these federal agencies were being weaponized and being used to limit American speech, censor American speech, in what some journalists have called this censorship industrial complex, again, where it's big government big universities, big tech, all working to go after conservatives.
So, Congressman, the only occupation protected in the Constitution is a free press, right? I mean, there are politicians, but besides politics, the free press. How do we ensure it doesn't happen again in 2024 and beyond?
Well, you talk about it. You got this court decision. I think it's going to go all the way to the Supreme Court. I think the Supreme Court's going to rule in favor of the First Amendment, and tell these agencies you can't do this. But sometimes just by having hearings, just by getting the information, just by doing reports like we did Monday, you can have an impact. A great example is the FBI, or excuse me, the IRS used to have agents go out and knock on Americans' doors. Well, they have stopped that policy, stopped that practice. And of course, the commissioner of the IRS, Danny Warfel, said, well, this is because we're concerned about the safety of our agents. Baloney. The reason they did it is because when Matt Taibbi, one of the authors of the Twitter files, was testifying in front of our committee about censorship, the IRS was actually knocking on his door as he's testifying in front of Congress. And we caught him in all this, and we made a big issue out of it, and they've now changed their policy. So sometimes just showing how bad it was, doing our oversight duty, you can change how these agencies function.
Yeah, hold their feet to the fire, so to speak. I'm glad you brought up the IRS. Brings up the other issue. I think you heard today David Weiss testify, and tell us what happened. So David Weiss, for the folks who don't understand, he's overseeing. He's been elevated to general counsel to oversee the Hunter Biden case, but isn't he the same guy that the whistleblower Shapley and Ziegler both accused of slow walking the Hunter Biden case? Tell us what you learned.
Yeah. Well, 5 years he's been running this case, investigating this case. So 5 years sure seems like a long time. And I think the big takeaway was that everything he told us just further confirms what Mr. Shapley and Mr. Ziegler, the IRS whistleblowers, told us, namely that David Weiss was asked during the deposition today, he was asked, did you ever request special attorney status? And his response was, yes, I did request that in the spring of 2022. And yet he never got that, even though he said he requested, the main justice didn't give him that status. And so this was sort of the dispute that Mr. Shapley brought forward as the whistleblower. And David Weiss said, no, I always had the authority. Well, no, you didn't. Today under oath, you told us that you asked for it, and main justice, the Department of Justice, did not give you that authority. And then when you went to the U.S. attorneys in the District of Columbia, you went to the U.S. attorney in the Central District of California and asked them to partner with you in prosecuting the case, they said no, and then he still didn't get that authority that he initially asked for in the spring of 2022. That, to me, was the big takeaway, because that is not consistent with the letters he sent to us this summer explaining that he had this, quote, ultimate authority to determine when, where, and whether to bring charges.
So someone was lying. Someone was lying. It's either Weiss was lying or Attorney General Merrick Garland was lying. What do you think, sir? Right? They can't have it both ways.
Well, that's the point. They're trying to say, well, even though I asked for it and wasn't given it, they didn't deny it to me. And that's like, well, that doesn't make sense. But that's in essence what David Weiss said today in this deposition. And that's what Merrick Garland has said. He says if he would have asked for it, we'd have given it to him. Well, he did ask for it, and he never got it. Why is that the case? So that was the concern. I think they're trying to have it, as you say, both ways. Ultimately, this August, after everything fell apart, after they go to the judge with the sweetheart plea deal, and Judge Noriega says, no, we're not going to take this. This is unprecedented. I've never seen anything like this. And she puts a no on that. Ultimately, then and only then did David Weiss actually get special counsel status from the Attorney General.
So Shapley and Ziegler say David Weiss slow walked the investigation. They also, I don't know if they did, but we also believe that there was some sort of sweetheart deal that blew up because they were looking for a blanket amnesty going forward, and the judge was smart enough to say, hold on. But sir, didn't Hunter get excused of one of the more pressing crimes he was I guess charged with, the gun charge?
Well, yeah, that's true. But I think the bigger takeaway, Eric, is that they let the statute, Mr. Weiss and his investigation, they let the statute of limitations lapse for tax years 2014, 2015. Those were the years when Hunter Biden was getting the income from Burisma. I mean, lots of money, millions of dollars that he never paid never paid taxes on. And they just let that expire. They just let that statute of limitations run. That makes no sense to me, other than this was the money from Burisma, and of course, Burisma, that links you to Vice President Joe Biden, because he's the guy who went over there, got the prosecutor fired, who was looking into the company when Hunter Biden was on the board of Burisma. So I think that's interesting too. Now, David Weiss didn't get into all that because the scope of what our deposition was, our interview was today, was largely on his authority, what authority he had and what authority he didn't have. But I do find that interesting.
I do too. Congressman James Comer is going to be on the show tomorrow night. He's promised some subpoenas going out very soon, and maybe some of this will have overlap with judiciary, yes?
Yeah. We're going to be, the plan is for us to help with those depositions when they happen. Good. But we need to talk to Hunter Biden. We need to talk to James Biden. We need to talk to people who bought his artwork. We need to talk to the guy who paid Hunter Biden's tax bill. There was a guy just, out of the blue comes and Shazam, I'm going to pay his tax liability. We need to talk to that guy. So there's a number of people that we want to bring in for depositions, and we're going to do that.
Maybe Hunter sent him a painting or two, and let's call it even a couple $1 million bucks. Let's call it even. Chairman Jim Jordan, thank you so much for your time.
You bet. Thanks, Eric. Take care.
All right, coming up, from the transgender agenda to the rabid anti-Semitism seen on college campuses to pornographic books in our kids' schools, there's one common thread here: wokeness. Up next, Senator Ted Cruz joins me to discuss how the woke agenda is rotting America from the inside out. Well, we're now learning that the Nashville school transgender shooter was likely motivated by anti-white racism. The government never had any right to keep the trans shooter's manifesto a secret, and to this day it hasn't been released. What gives them the authority anyway to make that kind of determination? When innocent children are massacred, the community has the right to know exactly what happened and why. Back in March, a deranged trans shooter named Audrey Hale shot her way into the Covenant School, a Christian private school in Nashville, Tennessee. Hale executed 3 young students, all of them 9 years old. Hale also shot and killed the head of the school, a custodian, and a substitute teacher. 6 people in total died that day, and the government fought to keep this information hidden because they want to keep the white supremacists are the bigger terror threat to America narrative going along. The Nashville police did release an official statement about the leaked documents saying, quoting here, the MNPD is in communication with the Metropolitan Department of Law as an investigation begun this morning continues into the dissemination of 3 photographs of writings during an online discussion about Covenant School. The photographs are not MNPD crime scene images. The police department has been in contact with a representative of Covenant families. Police department counselors are available to assist them in coping with the emotional trauma caused by dissemination. I'm sure there's a legitimate reason why law enforcement is keeping this manifesto under lock and key, but they seem angry that a small portion of the manifesto they tried to keep hidden from the public possibly got leaked. And in response, the newly elected progressive mayor of Nashville opens an investigation into the leak of the trans terrorist manifesto. Notice how that mayor doesn't go after the trans terrorists. No, he goes after the people potentially exposing this terrorist woke ideology. Here to explain how the left always covers up stories that don't fit the liberal narrative is author of the new book, Unwoke, How to Defeat Cultural Marxism in America, and friend of the show, friend of mine, I may say, Texas Senator Ted Cruz. Senator, it's striking how this mayor, new mayor, Freddie O'Connell, a Democrat, is more worried about a leak of a couple pictures of this manifesto than the apparent fact that this trans shooter was going after white children, white Christian children.
Yeah, assuming these images are accurate and nobody from Nashville is denying their authenticity, then this manifesto demonstrates that this deranged shooter was a radical leftist who was lashing out at quote, white privilege and the toxic rhetoric from the left. The toxic rhetoric of critical race theory is what drives this nonsense of white privilege. And anytime there is a crime that contradicts the narrative of the left, it quickly disappears from the headlines. Had this been instead a murderer whose politics were right of center, the media would have a field day exposing it. And I think we ought to condemn murder no matter where the politics are coming from. But, I'll say more broadly, you mentioned my brand new book, Unwoke, which came out today. So today is its release date. It's available in bookstores all across America. It's already a #1 bestseller in politics on Amazon online. And what the book does is it takes you inside how the radical left has seized the major institutions of our nation. I and you and many of us are so frustrated and infuriated. How did things get so crazy in America? Well, this book, Unwoke, How to Defeat Cultural Marxism in America, it seeks to answer that question. And Eric, it starts where all of this started, in the universities. And chapter 1 is the universities, which I call the Wuhan lab of the woke virus. It's where the woke virus was created, it's where it mutated, and it's where it spread. And so chapter 1 is the universities, and then the book goes to K through 12 education, which has been poisoned with critical race theory and radical transgender agendas. Then it goes to journalism and explains how woke left-wing journalism now is advocacy and propaganda rather than reporting actual facts. From there, it goes to big business, and then to big tech, and then it goes to entertainment, to Hollywood, to movies, to TV and sports and music, and then finally to science. And every one of them, what the book does is, #1, explain how and why cultural Marxists have seized these institutions. And then #2, even more important, it lays out a practical battle plan for how to take the institutions back, how to defeat
Senator,
this loony-ness.
Let's do this. How do you? I mean, you're right. I mean, they've weaponized the FBI. They've weaponized media now. They've always had the academia has always been wildly liberal. They've weaponized that to propagandize our kids for 4 years. But how do you break it, Senator? It's becoming it's emanating from every corner of the earth.
So, look, you do a host of things. #1, you need sunshine and transparency, because the ideas of the radical left are wildly unpopular. No rational person supports abolishing the police. No rational person supports open borders and the chaos at our southern border. No rational person supports medically castrating and sterilizing 8-year-old children. No rational person has difficulty figuring out what a woman is. All of those views, the radical left, are on the wrong side of 90-10 issues. And so they rely on force and power to jam through their agenda. So, for example, in the chapter on big business, I discuss how big corporations have become the economic enforcer of the left-wing agenda. But then, in terms of the solution, I focus very much on what happened to Bud Light and to Target. You look at Bud Light, where we've never seen a brand light itself on fire the way Bud Light did, and it went from being the #1 most popular beer in America to dropping out of the top 10, to losing tens of billions of dollars of market value because they looked down on their customers and they tried to jam their political agenda down their throat. And then immediately after Bud Light, we had Target, where Target did the same thing. Instead of selling quality goods at an affordable price, which is why people go to Target, they decided the LGBT agenda was more important, and they began setting up these huge displays, pushing transgenderism on children and selling, quote, tuck-friendly bathing suits for 3-year-old boys. And here's the interesting point, Eric. So Target lost tens of billions of dollars likewise. And then you look at the conversations among Target executives, what they were saying is, we don't want to be another Bud Light. Don't let us be another Bud Light. The way we defeat it is we change the cost-benefit analysis so the risk, the downside of going woke exceeds the benefit. And I think that's a real victory and a plan that we can emulate and repeat.
Agree, and it's easy to do with business because you just stop buying Bud Light. But can you stop sending your kids to schools? It's not just a few schools. It's so rampant. Senator, can you just help us out here? We're trying to figure out how the Hamas, how the Palestine versus Israel conflict became almost like white privilege Israel against a minority or people of color Palestinians. How did that happen? Who made that happen?
So you're exactly right, and that's what the book Unwoke is all about. This is a manifestation, what we're seeing. So what I explain in the book is Marxism, laid out by Karl Marx. It views the world as inevitable conflict between oppressors and victims. And Marx used socioeconomic differentiators. So the oppressors are the owners of capital and the victims are the proletariat, the workers. And his solution is a violent revolution of the proletariat, where they use government force to redistribute wealth from the owners of capital to the victims. Now, at the universities, they expanded, they used that lens, and they focused then on other attributes. So critical race theory is the same dynamic of oppressor and victim, except it puts it in a racial context instead of socioeconomic. To the cultural Marxist, Jews are coded as oppressors, and Palestinians are coded as victims. And so, therefore, the cultural Marxist supports the violent revolution of the victims, the Palestinians, against the oppressors and using force. And that's why you have leftists celebrating the atrocities of Hamas. And to tie it all together, you look at something like Black Lives Matter, which is a Marxist organization founded by avowed Marxists who are celebrating Hamas, who are tweeting out pictures of the paragliders who were murdering innocent citizens. I did a podcast. As you know, I do a podcast every week, Verdict with Ted Cruz. We do it Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. I did a podcast a couple of weeks ago that was entitled Black Lives Matter is Hamas. And I describe how Black Lives Matter, the organization, is viciously anti-Semitic, for decades has called for the abolition of Israel.
Yep.
And then I laid out the corporations that have written checks to Black Lives Matter, like Apple and Amazon and Coca-Cola, and I called them out. Now, what's fascinating, that podcast came out on October 18th. The next day, Coca-Cola went online and erased from their website all the references to the $500,000 they gave to Black Lives Matter.
Maybe they're listening,
That's
Senator.
how
Possibly they're listening. And I'll tell you what, they should listen to the podcast and they should pick up the book, because you're right. You're on it. We need people like you to step up and expose it. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Eric.
Coming up, with many key contests and initiatives being decided across the country tonight, will the results from tonight's races tell us anything about 2024? Up next, John McLaughlin and Monica Crowley join me to break it all down. Stick around. Off-year elections, like any election, are extremely important, and these especially can give an indication of what's to come during the next 2024 presidential election cycle. Joining me now to break it all down is pollster with McLaughlin and Associates, John McLaughlin. Also here, former Assistant Secretary of the Treasury with the Trump administration and host of the Monica Crowley podcast. Monica Crowley. John, I'm going to start with you because a lot of things have been going on. We're going to let the election desk take care of some of the things that are being decided tonight. John, for me, what's over the last 24, 48 hours or so, the New York Times came out with polls, CBS came out with polls, and now CNN showing Trump beating Biden straight up. What are your thoughts? Is this real?
It is real. It's in the net. I wish the election was tomorrow. I mean, my colleagues in the Trump campaign, to Chris LaCivita and Jason Williams and the others, I said, usually I get calls early in the morning when these polls come out and say, what's wrong with CBS? What's wrong with New York Times? What's wrong with CNN? Well, there's nothing wrong with them now. They all have Trump ahead. So what's going on is the Biden people are panicking. And it's something we've been seeing in our national poll, because we just had a national poll at the end of October where Trump was leading 48-43 over Joe Biden, 1,000 likely voters, modeled after the 2020 race. So there's 4 points more Biden voters in that poll than there are Trump voters. And guess what? Trump's up by 5. There is a Biden 2020 voter who has switched to Donald Trump. And it's not just working class voters, it's broader, it's college graduates. You've got African Americans, where some of these polls have 22, we have 29, you have 39% with Hispanics. So working class voters who wake up in the morning, buy gas, go to the supermarket, try to buy food, they're sick and tired of inflation. They're sick and tired of having to worry about crime. They're sick and tired about the border. And they're really worried about, you got war in Ukraine, you got war in Israel, and nobody's afraid of Joe Biden.
You know, Monica, abortion may be on the ticket in this election tonight, November of 23. November of 24, I'm guessing it'll be, as John points out, crime and the economy. If not Biden, then whom?
Well, isn't that the killer question, right? That's the million-dollar question. Look, the Republican primary has been over for nearly a year. It's Donald Trump. I just wrote an entire op-ed for Newsweek that was published on Monday, yesterday, about all of this. Trump is the one. So the Republican primary is long since gone. He will be the nominee. All of the action, Eric and John, is going to happen on the Democratic side. Clearly now you're getting Barack Obama, who is the major player in the Democratic Party. He is the left's biggest power broker. He is running the country right now as we speak. He's the one that calls the shots. And what we saw over the weekend was Barack Obama entering into this race and putting his thumb on the scale against his former Vice President, Joe Biden. We saw David Axelrod come out. We saw Bill Kristol come out. We saw the ABC News Sunday Morning panel all come out questioning whether or not Joe Biden should proceed ahead as a Democratic nominee. This tells us that the Dems power brokers do not want him to run. They do not believe now that he can win. He certainly can't do a basement strategy like he did last time. And so the question is, who are they going to run? They've got a huge Kamala Harris problem. They cannot run her. But black women are their most devoted voting bloc. So how do they square that circle? It may very well be that they turn to someone like Michelle Obama.
That would be interesting. I think that New York Times polls kind of rocked a lot of people's worlds. And as you point out, David Axelrod, the guy who created Barack Obama and made Barack Obama that presidency, saying that maybe it's time for Joe Biden to step aside. That was massive. Monica Crowley, John McLaughlin, thank you both so much.
Thanks.
All right, folks, it's election night, and we have more results tonight. Let's check back in, with the election desk where Jen Pellegrino is standing by. Jen, the very latest. What are you hearing?
Hey, Eric, thanks so much. Yeah, we are obviously watching a number of races here. We, of course, called the race for Democrat Andy Beshear in Kentucky. He wins re-election. Incumbent, he was up against Trump-endorsed Daniel Cameron. In Mississippi, we're watching as the polls have closed there. Tate Reeves up against Democrat Brandon Presley. Early polling back in October had Reeves up 8 points, so we're watching that one as well. And, of course, in Virginia, the battle for state legislature. Glenn Youngkin hoping to turn this bluish-purple state red. Let's talk about Virginia for a minute. We've been talking about the issues, of course, abortion, which is throughout the races this evening. Senator, Virginia, obviously, not only is abortion a big issue on the ballot, but the focus on education and what's going on in schools. Loudoun County has been ground zero for parents' involvement in the classroom. How big is that in this election?
Well, I can tell you, one of the key races that just to set the stage of where the Virginia legislature is, the Republicans are down 2 seats in the House. They're up 1 seat, down 2 seats in the Senate, up 1 seat in the House. And so they have to flip 2 Senate seats, which are all up this time, all the Senate's up this time, and they have to hold on to their seats in the House. They had a redistricting in Virginia, which just completely wiped out all these incumbents because they completely redid the districts, not keeping in mind where the incumbents were. So it's a lot of new races. It's almost like starting from scratch in many cases. A lot of, like I said, almost half of the folks are going to be new in the legislature. Right now, this Loudoun County seat, which is one of the 2 that the Republicans have to flip, is a narrow margin ahead. So that's potentially good news there. Another seat outside of Richmond, which is the other seat that I think is targeted for them, they're a little behind. So right now, it's too close to call.
And I want to bring in Mercedes Schlapp. Mercy, glad to have you joining us as well tonight. And as we watch this race in Virginia, obviously, Northern Virginia, very close to the nation's capital, to what's happening in Washington, to the Oval Office. You look at the direction of the country, a lot of people dissatisfied with where things are headed right now. How much of an impact does that have on the race in Virginia and the other races we're watching this
I do
evening?
have to say Northern Virginia, and I would love to get Rick's opinion on this, but Northern Virginia, they're always in a bubble. They are the ones that are recession-proof. It's a lot of these federal government employees. They don't have to worry about, they worry about inflation. Yes, there's an impact, but not to the degree or the level that you see in other states like Pennsylvania or Ohio. So I think for Virginia, that makes it a little trickier in the Northern Virginia area. I will say Governor Youngkin has really stepped up in places where, for example, the RNC, they did not put any money into this race. So that obviously is problematic, but you've seen Youngkin really raise money from a PAC standpoint, go out and campaign for these candidates. That could be the deal breaker there. But again, Virginia is so tricky in some of these districts, especially in the areas like Richmond, which have turned a lot more Democrat, is a lot more Democrat than Republican, where we could possibly lose that House seat.
Mercedes Schlapp, we got to leave it there for now. Thank you. Eric Bowling, want to send it back to you. Obviously, a lot we're monitoring tonight, and we'll keep you posted there at home as these races unfold.
Got it right here. Jen Pellegrino, Rick Santorum, Mercedes Schlapp. You folks will be on all night, folks. Stick around. A lot more results coming up. But tonight, right here, coming up, recent polls show Donald Trump leading Joe Biden in several key battleground states. But as it turns out, that may be the least of the president's problems. I'm talking about Biden. Up next, my panel of Peter Navarro and Congressman Ronnie Jackson join me to weigh in on how the House oversight is closing in on Joe and the shady Biden business dealings. Joe Biden is in some serious political trouble, maybe even legal trouble. The House Oversight Committee, led by James Comer, is teasing multiple subpoenas against the first family coming imminently. Join me now is former Trump White House trade advisor and author of Taking Back Trump's America, Peter Navarro. Also here, former chief medical advisor to President Obama and Trump, Texas Congressman Ronnie Jackson. Pete, I'll start with you. Multiple subpoenas coming down. Is this finally, is this the thread leading back to the big guy, or is this just another witch hunt? Tell us what's going on.
Look, Eric, this was the week that really the Democrats themselves stepped up the campaign to take Biden out of the presidential race. It's going to be the Democrats that take him down, not the Republicans. Polling, New York Times came out. There's former advisors to Obama saying he should step down. The scenario I see, Eric, is he'll go ahead and win the primaries and things, but when it comes time for the convention, he'll step aside. That way they'll avoid all the run to the left kind of issues that a primary would entail. And up will come Gavin or Michelle, and that's the way it is. He's in such deep trouble. The other thing I'll say, I'm sure you saw this, USA Today, Hunter Biden published an op-ed that had the chutzpah to go after me personally for questioning his ethics. And it was like this pity party about him being an addict. Just to be clear, Eric, my accusations on Hunter Biden is that he sold this country out with the help of his brother and the help of his father and his father's brother, James. It's the Biden crime family. And what they did was something that should be first investigated fully and quickly and then prosecuted if just. And it's like when Hunter Biden comes after me, you know they're desperate.
Yeah. Well, the other thing, Congressman Ronnie Jackson, is that people are sick of the crime and you know, all these nonsense things going on, but they're also concerned that the man just is not here enough. 51% in that recent CNN poll said they would never vote for Biden no matter what. How is he? Is he going to make it to 2024 if he decides to stay in?
Well, look, Eric, I'm going to say start right off the bat, I couldn't agree more with Peter. By the way, Peter is one of my mentors, and there's nobody when I worked at the White House that I respected more than Peter Navarro. He's awesome, and I agree with him 100% that they've got a big problem right now. And the main problem is this man is completely cognitively incapable of being our president, and everybody sees it. It's been on full display for 2.5 years now, and as each day goes on, they're trying to figure out more and more about what do they do about this, like how do they fix this problem, because they can't possibly run this man again for another term. I mean, we'll be lucky if he's able to finish the term that he's currently in. Everyone knows knows that at this particular point, and so I think to Peter's point, I think they have to find a way to get rid of him. And I've been saying this for a couple of years now. They will find a way to get rid of this man. And I've said also that I think that the one thing they will do is they will quietly look away while this Hunter Biden stuff blows up. And he has to resign, or he has to back out, or he has to declare that he's not going to run again. But the Democrats, not the Republicans, just like Peter said, it's going to be the Democrats that get rid of him, not the Republicans. They are going to find a reason, and I think that it will be the corruption, it will be the Biden crime family, it will be Hunter and his brother, and all this stuff that we're finding out now with these investigations that are going on in Congress. They will put so much pressure on him that he will have to bow out. And I think that's what's going to happen. And I think Peter's right. They'll probably wait till the last possible minute. They want to throw somebody in and not give them enough time to be vetted. And we'll see what happens. But I do not think ultimately that Joe Biden will be the nominee, because I don't think he can do it, and I think they know it.
And if he is the nominee and then can't finish and wins and somehow wins and can't finish that term, then America's stuck with Kamala Harris, President Kamala Harris.
Yeah.
Ronnie, tell me, God forbid.
No, I mean, I think that's true. And I mean, I think that's been Joe Biden's biggest insurance policy since day one, is a lot of people have looked at the alternative and they were like, what have we done here? You know, we got this man in, he's our president now, he's our commander in chief, he's our head of state, he's cognitively impaired, he's incapable of doing the job. But what are we going to do about it? Because if we get rid of him, who do we have? We have Kamala Harris. She polls lower than he does. She's literally a box of rocks. I mean, anyone who's met her or spent any time with her knows that, you know, she's got a whole different set of problems, but she can't do the job either. So, I mean, you know, we'll have to see how this all plays out, but they're going to find a way to get around this. The Democrats are going to get rid of him.
Yeah,
they're not stupid. They're not dumb, you guys. They
promise Kamala the Supreme Court, and then she'll step aside. That's the way it is. I love Ronnie, by the way. He is the man.
She wants that presidency. I'm not so sure. Peter Navarro, thank you. Congressman Ronnie Jackson, thank you both for your time. All right, folks, we've been talking about this. Newsmax Plus just launched. It's our new streaming app that lets you watch us on your home TV or smartphone anytime, anywhere. If you're a regular cable or satellite subscriber, you can continue watching Newsmax like you're doing right now. Nothing changes. But many people love Newsmax Plus. In fact, in just a few days, more than 100,000 people have signed up. You should sign up for a free trial. Just go to newsmaxplus.com to sign in. The trial is free. Go to the Newsmax app on your home TV or smartphone and start watching. Newsmax Plus works just like Netflix and other Plus services, so you can watch The Balance and our other shows with Greta Van Susteren, Greg Kelly, Rob Schmidt, and Newsmax Plus subscription gives you all of our shows, archives, and great news specials with President Trump and even history and current affairs programs. Newsmax Plus is growing. It's going to be a really big thing. So download the Newsmax app on your home TV or smartphone and start watching. Start with the free trial. If you like us, just continue. And remember, a monthly subscription costs less than many coffee drinks at Starbucks. So get started today. Go to newsmaxplus.com and sign up for the free trial. I subscribed. I'm telling my friends to sign up too, and you should as well. Go to newsmaxplus.com. How about right now? Coming up, my panel of Sebastian Gorka and Christina Bobb are here to weigh in on the Jihad Squad's defense of Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib amid the call to have her censored in the House. The House is set to vote on a resolution to censor Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib, but this didn't stop her crazed colleagues from heading to the House floor today to showcase their support for her.
Rashida will stand strong.
Gentlelady's time has expired.
The movement will continue for liberation.
We are human beings, just like anyone else.
I spent all weekend in Michigan this last weekend talking to all the communities about the meaning of this phrase. And there are very strong feelings on all sides. And it's very clear that people interpret words in different ways.
It's outrageous, but it's not surprising. And let me tell you, it's not surprising because this place is where 1,700 members of Congress, this elected body, enslaved black people. It's not surprising because they thought it was right. It's not surprising because this is a place where members continue to claim that the insurrection on the Capitol just appeared to look like a normal tourist visit. It's not surprising because this is the place where our black and brown staff members repeatedly speak of experiencing racism and sexism, Islamophobia, get pushed off at elevators, xenophobia, and more right here in this workplace.
Is she going to be all right? Well, here now to assess the craziness on the left is former Trump White House advisor Sebastian Gorka. You know, Seb, they somehow made it about a race again, Sebastian. How did they turn this Hamas versus killing Israelis and Israelis trying to defend themselves? How did this become a race issue?
I don't know, Eric, but somebody needs to be buying stock in Valium. It looks like the Democrats need some Valium. I mean, sort of race, really, what is Muslim a race now? Palestinian isn't even a word except for the original concept when Rome used it to insult the Jews 2,000 years ago. It's actually the word for Philistine. But why can't they actually answer simple questions? Whether it's Rashida Tlaib, whether it's Ilhan Omar, whether it's AOC, we've seen the footage. They are incapable, Eric, of saying the slaughtering of Israeli babies is wrong. They can fly the quote-unquote Palestine flag outside their office. They can put on a pro-terrorist scarf, but they can't say that Israel has the right to self-defense. Why is that, Eric? Why is that so difficult for them to say?
Because Democrats, liberals live on the race card. They've made careers using the race card, and somehow they've made Israelis the privileged white class, and they've made the Palestinians a minority class, so people of color. And I just, for the life of me, they probably share a ton of the same DNA between the two. They've lived side by side for 70 years or so. I mean, I'm just blown away, Sebastian. But will these people get reelected, though?
Well, look, we'll find out what happened in the many, many elections today. You know, I live in the Commonwealth of Virginia. We'll see what happens. But, you know, you're absolutely right. These people, look, as a good friend of mine said at the weekend, I was in California speaking for a GOP event, and my host there, Katrina, said, whenever a Democrat suddenly brings up the race card, all you have to say is winning, because it means they're losing. When they have to pull out the race card from their backside, it means they've got nothing else. So just look at them and with a wry smile say, winning.
All right, we're going to leave it right there. Sebastian Gorka, I appreciate your time. Thank you, my friend.
Thanks, Eric.
Okay, folks, coming up, one last thing you won't want to miss, I promise. All right, one last thing before we go. Hey, control room, you got a dog? I'm looking for a dog. You got a dog? This incredible video. Watch this Special Forces K9. The dog is trained to walk backwards and guard his soldier's back. That is amazing. No, we didn't have a dog there, folks. We got a hero right there. That's all the time we have. Greg Kelly is up next. Greg Kelly Reports is up next. Have a great night. Keep it here on Newsmax all night. They're going to cut in. They're going to tell you all about the elections that are going on around the country. It's going to be going on through the night. Stick here. Newsmax. Greg Kelly Reports up next. Thank you.
The people always get it. We always do. They've tried. Oh boy, with the indictments, the investigations, the impeachments, and still he is on fire. Actually, all the adversity has made Donald Trump stronger. We can all see it. Our allies can see it. Our adversaries can see it. He's strong. Joe Biden is weak. Their president, he projected strength, Donald Trump. Joe Biden is projecting weakness, and we can all see it night and day, and it's putting us at serious risk. These men on the presidential stage, who's strong and who's weak?
What is your message to Hezbollah and its backer, Iran? Don't.
North Korea best not make any more threats to the United States. They will be met with fire and fury like the world has never seen.
What's the message to Iran?
Don't. By removing Soleimani, we have sent a powerful message to terrorists. If you value your own life, you will not threaten the lives of our people.
To anyone who might seek to take advantage of the conflict in Gaza to threaten our personnel here or anywhere else in the region, don't do it.
It was China's fault. And China is going to pay a big price, what they've done to this country. China is going to pay a big price, what they've done to the world. This was China's fault. And just remember that.
It's amazing that the don't word is not working, right? Don't do it. I have received more stern warnings from a substitute teacher who I never listened to in the 4th grade. Don't is not cutting it. We lost in Afghanistan because we have a weak leader, right? Everybody can see it. This reset the world. Ukraine, we invited Putin basically to invade Ukraine. 62% of Americans believe Ukraine would not have been invaded by Putin if President Trump were still in office. And Hamas, most common sense observers of the world believe that this would not have happened with President Trump in the White House. So the weakness, where's it coming from? Well, obviously, Joe Biden is weak, but also this. You know, our adversaries pick up on it when the leader of a country talks bad and down about that country.
And we won't ignore what our intelligence agencies have determined to be the most lethal terrorist threat to the homeland today. White supremacy is terrorism. And white supremacists will not have the last word. And this venom and violence cannot be the story of our time.
To stand up against the poison of white supremacy, as I did my inaugural address, to single out as the most dangerous terrorist threat to our homeland is white supremacy.
According to the United States intelligence community, domestic terrorism from white supremacists is the most lethal terrorist threat in the homeland. White supremacy is a poison. It's a poison running through it. It really is.
2 white supremacists arrested in America in 2019. 2. And anybody who's thinking about doing something bad, whatever their orientation or ideology is, if they actually committed an illegal act, they should be arrested. But when Joe Biden talks so inaccurately about America, guess what? Some poor, ignorant, sick souls are going to fall prey to it. Like Audrey Hale. This is Audrey Hale. I think this might have been back during the Trump administration a few years ago. And then this toxic stew, I'm not just blaming Joe Biden, but this horrible view of America. She went on a journey, transgender journey, and then turned out to be a school shooter. And we found the manifesto. Now, she opened fire on those beautiful children in Nashville. You remember this back in March. We're getting a glimpse at her manifesto. You may have heard. What we've seen so far, she was motivated by a hatred of white people. Calls them little crackers. I'm going after you, you and your white privilege. I wonder where she might have gotten a crazy idea like that. Just wondering. Joe Biden, mainstream media, everywhere you look. But her hang-up wasn't just white people. She had a few other issues, and Joe Biden provided her all the recognition one could want.
To everyone celebrating Transgender Day of Visibility, I want you to know that your president sees you. Jill, Kamala, Doug, our entire administration sees you for who you are. And know this, you're so brave, you belong, and we have your back.
This is so wildly outside a president's job description to be talking about kids and transgender issues. Look it up. This stuff is not in the Constitution. We don't need a president for this kind of stuff. He really should just stay out of it. But again, with the bad-mouthing of America, these lost souls, this message, I think it fired them up, maybe even radicalized them. What happens when Joe lies like this?
You've heard me say it before, and I apologize for having to repeat it. When a person can be married in the morning and thrown out of a restaurant for being gay in the afternoon, something is still fundamentally wrong in this country. And that still exists.
Well, it's actually not true, but it can rile up people who are mentally ill, and it can send a signal to our adversaries that all is not right in America. Putin, President Xi, Kim Jong-un, you think they run around bad-mouthing their countries? No. How about our allies, the good guys, right? The leader of France, the leader of the UK, Japan, India. They don't do it. Only America. Only a Joe Biden, sitting American president, talking down about America, and I think there's a trickle-down effect. Audrey Hale, right? Just sitting there wallowing on the internet and finding the motivation somehow to pick up that gun, finding the justification. Now, the manifesto that you may have heard of alludes to a hatred of white people. Yeah, she is white. We do believe that later pages, which we have not seen yet, will outline a transgender component to the violence. And I got that from the chief of police in Nashville.
Did she identify as transgender?
She does identify as transgender, yes.
Is there any reason to believe that how she identifies has any motive for targeting the school?
We can give you that at a later time. There is some theory to that. We're investigating all the leads, and once we know exactly, we will let you know.
Well, they don't want us to know it now. I wonder why. Because everything transgender is sacred. Even a transgender school shooter? You know, once this thing came out, the remnants of the manifesto, the New York Times would not actually say what they found. They would not talk about the anti-white racism that was present in this horrible shooter's mind. Why? Well, it did not meet the narrative. You hear the word narrative, right? It's a favorite word of the fake news. Narrative, right? Narrative. They used to not talk about narratives not that long ago. A way of presenting or understanding a situation or series of events that reflects and promotes a particular point of view or set of values. So you can't just report stuff that happened or facts. You have to present it in story form, like the Hardy Boys. Remember the Hardy Boys, those two teenagers? They could solve any case that adults screwed up, and they never failed, right? That's a story. And you have heroes, and you have bad guys. That's a narrative. And the narrative for the media is Donald Trump is a threat to democracy. That's the narrative, right? Anything he does is seen through that prism. Also, everything about transgenderism is glorious and beautiful, and we are to embrace it. So when we find out about a crazy mass shooter who happens to be trans, that will be ignored because it does not fit the narrative. However, if you really look at the narrative, if you really look at what's happening, right? Kids around these kinds of people in school, we are playing with fire. We are rearranging the brain chemistry of children. And there's plenty of data and study to say that this is going to lead to more dark, dark places. Charles Manson, remember him? Remember hearing of him, right? Helter Skelter and all that stuff. Did you know his uncle forced him to wear dresses to school? He had a bit of trauma in his lifetime. How about Ted Kaczynski? Also had issues with gender. Actually applied for a sex change when he was in graduate school. You don't hear about that too much, but that is true. You don't hear about it because it undermines the whole idea that anything about transgender might be negative, might be associated with mental illness. You know, over the summer, there was a shooting in Philadelphia. This is the person who was brought into custody. Several people were killed. This individual would appear to most individuals to be a transgender. Well, let's go through the facts, please. How many victims? 5 killed, 2 injured. The suspect, Kim Brady Carricker. And in about 10 minutes of looking around the internet, you could tell that this individual had issues of sexual identity. Let's put it like that, okay? Issues of sexual identity. Couldn't quite figure it out. So the media wouldn't touch it. They just played it like, wow, this person had a gun, and that's it.
So, George Sleece, what have we learned from this morning's arraignment, if anything, about the suspect? We knew very little about him, except that he was armed and wearing battle gear.
Actually, I went to the guy's Facebook page. I saw his community groups. I saw the friends. I saw the people he didn't like. I saw the people he liked. I saw it all, but they pretended that they couldn't.
And you're right. We didn't know a whole lot about this suspect other than what police had said, that this individual was wearing a ski mask with a tactical vest, had an AR-style rifle, a handgun, and seemingly targeted people at random in this Southwest Philadelphia neighborhood, killing 5. That now part of the charges this suspect faces. 11 total offenses with multiple counts in each, everything ranging from those murder charges to aggravated assault.
You see, just it's like he's reading from the court docket. I think it's kind of relevant, actually, that the person might have been transgender because that is an indication that the person might have had mental illness. A lot of people with gender dysphoria, well, gender dysphoria is considered a mental illness, but that goes against the narrative that anything trans must be beautiful and good And we see you, we feel you, we hear you, and the president has your back. Stay the heck out of it, Joe. The people totally get it. The people get it. Those nut jobs don't. Elite media, institutions, corporate America, they don't. And it's kind of fun to watch. Sad, too, and dangerous, but at times you can kind of laugh. Folks, coming up, James Comer is on the verge of bringing Hunter Biden and his uncle Jim to Congress. Subpoenas are flying. These guys can expect one very, very soon. All right, also this, we have some races to call. You know, it's election night. And in Mississippi, the incumbent attorney general won rather easily. All right, congratulations to Miss Finch. Let's see, Rhode Island House, Mr. Amo, Democrat, beat Mr. Leonard, the Republican, rather decisively. I think that's the state house, or no, I'm sorry, the U.S. House. Okay, and what is going on here? The Ohio Abortion Initiative, it's approved overwhelmingly, it looks like, established in the Constitution of the state of Ohio. An individual has a right to one's own reproductive medical treatment. Okay, this is a victory, it looks like, for the pro-abortion forces. Much more when we come back. Do you recognize these people? It's a good chance you don't. They try to keep a low profile, but that is James Biden, the brother of Joe, along with his wife, Sarah. Now, thanks to the House Oversight Committee, we know that they wrote pretty big checks to the brother or brother-in-law, Joe Biden, the president of the United States. James Biden wrote a check for $200,000 grand. The sister-in-law wrote a check for $40,000. This was back when Joe was an ex-vice president of the United States, but it is very fishy. It goes against almost every single denial they've ever issued, or, you know, talking about how, oh, we never did business or talk business. Now, this is smoking gun stuff, in my opinion. Look at what the fake news did. They ignored it. They ignored and none of the big shows talked about this. The Sunday shows, not the $200,000 check, not the $40,000 check. Somehow, I don't think it makes it less significant. We're joined by Congressman James Comer, the chair of the House Oversight Committee. Welcome back, Congressman Comer. It frustrates me, but I guess it doesn't matter. What do you make of that they don't cover it?
Well, I honestly think it's a good sign. You know, I'll give you another example. When I walked down the hall to go vote in the Capitol, for 8 months, the media, they hang out on each side, and they've stopped me. How's your investigation? Implying that there's no evidence. All their stories they wrote out, no evidence, even when we were accumulating mountains of evidence. Now, when I walk to the Capitol, ever since we found those 2 checks to Joe Biden for $250,000, the reporters look down at their feet. They act like they're on their phone. They just turn their back to me. I think that's a good sign. The media knows this is another example of them totally screwing up a big story, whether it was the Steele dossier and the Russian hoax, whether it was Dr. Fauci and the mask, whether it's the Biden family influence peddling. I mean, the media has been wrong so many times, and the fact that they're not covering it. Remember, before, when we would produce something, they would attack me and try to discredit me. Now they're not covering it. That shows we're going in the right direction, and I think what you're going to see is more and more media outlets start calling for Joe Biden to not run again.
Wow, you know, they're so invested in this stuff not coming out because, as you said, they've been ignoring genuine stories about this guy for a long time. Hey, I got to give you a heads up, though. Fox News, there are some great people over there, but their signature public affairs show on Sunday morning did not mention the check, either the $200,000 or the $40,000 check more recently. So they seem to have their own, I don't know, internal fiefdoms over there. Kind of difficult figuring out that place. Look, what's coming down the pike? You got anything for us right now?
Yeah, we're at the point. I've been saying this. The subpoenas are imminent. We have enough bank records now. We can bring all the Biden family members in and ask them specific questions about specific transactions. We've talked to enough people. We now know where the money was coming from, and we know the scheme. We know how they were laundering it. all the way down to 10 different Biden family members. We know all this. We have the evidence. So we can start bringing them in and asking them questions like, what was this income for? What did you do to get this $1 million? What exactly is this company? You have 20 companies. What exactly do they do? The questions that honestly the government should have been asking, whether it was the IRS, the FBI, the Department of Justice, or whomever, finally, the House Oversight Committee is in a position to ask those questions. So as I've said for the last few days, the subpoenas are imminent. And I think that the Bidens have a lot of questions that they're going to have to answer, that they're going to have a hard time answering.
Subpoenas are imminent, but tell me exactly who is going to get them again. I'm sorry if I missed that.
Well, there's several Biden family members. I mean, obviously, Hunter and Jim will be served a subpoena. They're the two leading recipients of the millions and millions of dollars from foreign nationals around the globe. And then other Biden family members that have received wires. We're gonna bring them in and see if they can explain how they ended up with getting $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 deposits into their account from Romanian foreign nationals, for example.
Hey, how about Valerie, the sister? We don't hear, they all keep a very low profile. Valerie Biden, and I guess this is legal, but in my opinion, it stinks. She ran all of Joe Biden's campaigns since 1972, all the way up through 2008. Now she seems to be some sort of art merchant, a kind of a middle person for Hunter and his artwork. She presides over that Delaware, the University of Delaware Biden Center, which got a lot of Chinese money, right? Anyway, is she figuring into any of this?
She does. And you mentioned a key word, the artwork. I suspect that this influence peddling has still been taking place, and I believe it's been taking place through the sale of artwork. So we're going to be highlighting some of our investigative steps that we've taken that pertain to the art world and Hunter's newfound fame as an international artist. And I think that that too is going to be hard for the Biden family to explain.
Real quick, the polls that came out over the weekend, Axelrod coming out against Joe Biden. I think you have something to do with that. That's what we're saying. That's what we said, right? They're listening, they're hearing, they know, even though they're not acknowledging. You're having a real impact on Democrats.
How hard is it to explain alone? You know, if you, in fact, made a $240,000 loan to your brother, you should be able to prove that in 40 seconds. Whether they can prove it or not, it's still a fact that we've proven that the money that was paid to Joe Biden came from influence peddling. So Joe Biden profited $240,000 off of his family's influence peddling scheme. There's no denying that. And that's just the beginning. Now we can bring these Biden family members and associates in and ask them specific questions because we've built up the case and we have the evidence.
Well, I don't think he's going to be the nominee, and I think something big is going to happen way before then. We'll see, though. Congressman Comer, thank you very much. Great work. Stay in touch, and we'll be right back. Thank you, sir.
Welcome back. And GMA Out Loud celebrating Pride all month long. And this morning, RuPaul's Drag Race All-Stars Season 8 frontrunner, that would be Miss Candy Muse, is making a pit stop here at GMA to tell us all about the sickening new season.
Sickening is right. Wow, what is going on? This is GMA, owned by Disney. Disney! Magic Kingdom Disney, Mickey Mouse Disney. They have lost their minds, right? Not really. They've just kind of gone, well, they've overreacted, right? They're chasing what they think might be public demand. They don't have a clue. Total overreaction. A lot of things happened kind of all at once. George Floyd was part of it. Look at this statement they put on Instagram. We stand against racism. As if anybody does stand with racism. What are they? We stand for inclusion. We stand with our fellow black, just over the top, over the top, over the top. It's fascinating, though. Disney did this, and they did it in 2019, 2020. You know what they're also famous for The Bachelor. Who watches The Bachelor, right? It debuted all the way back in 2002. And 25 seasons. You know, they can cram more than one season in a year. 25 seasons. 24 of them, they never had one contestant who was black. 2002 it debuts, and they didn't have their first black bachelor until 2019. What's his name? Matt James? Yeah, great guy, Matt James. He was all the way at the end. What is that all about? It's a little bit strange. You see, I think most regular people, most regular Americans would not have to wait for a George Floyd to think, you know what, this guy's a nice guy. Why don't we put him in The Bachelor? 25 white men. They're elites. You see, working class people, us, we know blue-collar jobs. And when you work a blue-collar job, you might work with somebody, what do they like to say, who doesn't look like you. If you join the military, you see, we're just a bit more comfortable with race than people at the highest echelons of the media or corporate America. If you played football, you probably played with people who did not look like you, whether you're black, white, or whatever. But this crazy woke, totally over the top, right? What was that person's? Who knows? This is an overreaction. It is desperate. And if you play this game, whoever you are, you're going to lose. Remember Chris Harrison? He was the host of The Bachelor. And I can't even remember what he did wrong. He said, like, he didn't hate Gone with the Wind. And he had to apologize. He had to go on a tour, blaming himself and white privilege and all that stuff. And they still kicked him off the show. And Michael Strahan wouldn't even accept his apology. It's, when you go woke, you really do lose. And you really go a little bit mental. All right, it's election night, everybody, and Jennifer is standing by, Jen Pellegrino, with more.
Greg
Hi,
Kelly.
Jen.
Hey, you should be at this desk with us tonight. We missed you, but I guess you have a show to do. We have a lot of updates for all of y'all here at home. Let's start with Kentucky. Incumbent Democrat Andy Beshear officially won a second term as the governor of Kentucky. Republican Secretary of State Michael Adams, he secured his second term, and Republican Russell Coleman will be Kentucky's next Attorney General. Now over in Mississippi, the polls have closed in the race for governor. This is between Republican incumbent Tate Reeves and Democrat Brandon Presley. And in Virginia, the Commonwealth of Virginia, polls have closed with 140 seats of state legislature up for grabs. And lastly, of course, Ohio. Ohio voters there have approved the constitutional amendment guaranteeing the right to abortion. With me, our power panel, we have former Pennsylvania Senator Rick Santorum, former White House senior strategic advisor Mercedes Schlapp, and senior political analyst and host of Saturday Agenda, Rob Astorino. Panel, it's great to have you here tonight. A lot of races to break down, key issues that may tell us what we can expect in 2024. Mercy, let's start with you. Let's talk about Kentucky. Andy Beshear, a deep red state that went for Trump by 20-something points in 2020. Are you surprised by the outcome tonight?
I think I'm more disappointed than surprised because I think Daniel Cameron would have been the first black Republican governor in Kentucky. Very charismatic figure. Beshear, however, he's very popular in the state, actually.
Even among Trump voters.
Even amongst Trump voters. And the other piece of this to remember, though, what I think a lot of people are looking at is how did the Attorney General win? The Republican beat the Democrat. You have a Secretary of State Republican, yet the governor didn't pull it off at the end. So I think that was a big disappointment for Republicans.
Rob, let me go over to you here. I was looking on Twitter today, and Donald Trump Jr. tweeted something. He said, before you go vote today, go fill your gas tank, pay your bills, go to the grocery store. How much of what we're looking at in 2024, the direction of the country that we're seeing right now that people are dissatisfied with, how much is that impacting the races we're watching tonight?
Well, Kentucky, I think you would expect the Republican to have a better shot at it. He lost by about 6 points, and the others on the top of the ticket, they swept the entire state. Unfortunately, Cameron did not. There was a lot of blue within Kentucky against him. Mississippi, he's going to win, Tate, but he's running about 10 points behind the other top the tickets. So, I mean, I think abortion obviously was the issue in Ohio, so it wasn't anything about the economy. It was about abortion and pot, and they came out strong.
Senator, I got 30 seconds. Abortion, this obviously not a winning issue right now for Republicans. What can they do looking to 2024?
Well, first, just to report on Virginia, it doesn't look particularly promising in Virginia right now. There's still a chance, a path for the Republicans to take the majority in the Senate, but it's getting very, very narrow. And again, abortion was the issue the Democrats ran on in spite of all the other problems that the Biden administration and the Democrats have, that issue seems to carry weight, certainly in a blue state like Virginia.
Oh, that's right. All right. Greg Kelly, going to send it back to you. We'll be back with you all a little bit later in the hour.
All right, Jen, thank you. Thank you to the panel. And good luck to Daniel Cameron. I predict he'll be in Trump's cabinet. Stay tuned. Mike Johnson, the new speaker, was, well, he said he has a biblical worldview. Is that supposed to be controversial? Of course not. It sent the swamp in the media on fire. We're going to talk about just how hypocritical that is when we come back.
I am a Bible-believing Christian. Someone asked me today in the media, they said, it's curious, people are curious, what does Mike Johnson think about any issue under the sun? I said, well, go pick up a Bible off your shelf and read it. That's my worldview. That's what I believe. And so
That's
I make
your
no
personal
problem.
worldview.
It's my personal worldview.
Isn't that nice? Isn't that great? Isn't that, wow, how about that? A public official plugging the Bible. I thought it was terrific. I think this guy is a breath of fresh air. Mike Johnson, Republican of Louisiana. And yeah, so that statement, it made a lot of people uncomfortable. That's how I know he's onto something. Let's see. Let's go through the headlines here. Yeah, MAGA Mike Johnson and our broken Christian politics. There's some Christian guy who actually said that's a problem, that he talked about the Bible. All kinds of people nitpicking that statement. What is the problem? Can you imagine a country where this is a problem? Note to everybody in the swamp, Barack Obama, your hero. Notice anything? He's taking the oath of office and he has his hand somewhere, right? So does Bill Clinton. He has his right hand up and his left hand is on a book of some kind. George W. Bush, same situation. And even Kamala Harris. All right, so what is that? It is a Bible. And every American leader in the history of America has their hand on a Bible. Yet somehow to say it out loud, what a lost country we are. We will be found. I think we can get out of this. But, wow, good for Mike Johnson. And that is the best book out there. Can we check in now with Alana Austin? She's in Columbus, Ohio, reporting on the results. Abortion was on the ballot tonight. Alana, hello.
Hi, good evening, Greg. And we are at the Protect Women Ohio event here in the Columbus area. And a spokesperson came out a short time ago and said they would not be weighing in just yet. But there are projections from AP and NBC indicating that they believe that this issue one has moved forward and it would enshrine access to abortion in the state of Ohio. Now, exit polling indicated that a majority of folks who showed up to vote today, they were either dissatisfied or unhappy with the Supreme Court's overturning of Roe versus Wade last year. When we heard from Ad Impact reporting, pro-choice groups vastly outspent by the pro-life side on this ballot initiative. Millions of dollars came in from special interest groups like the ACLU, Planned Parenthood, and Michael Bloomberg. Opponents said they wanted to see they're concerned that there could be late-term abortion and children accessing abortion procedures without their parents even knowing about it. Mehek Cook, a legal expert and spokesperson for Protect Women Ohio, tells me she thinks issue one is so dangerous for Ohioans.
In the state of Ohio today, it's 22 weeks with exception. So this is very broad. It's very extreme. We've worked very hard. And I am grateful to Governor Mike DeWine, who has come out strong and said issue one is too radical. Pro-life, pro-choice, somewhere in between. This should not pass for Ohio. This is not common sense.
Also on the ballot in Ohio, state legalization of recreational marijuana. Results are still coming in there, but that one could also pass tonight if things continue trending in that direction. Supporters said that they hoped that it would mean folks with various medical conditions had easier access to marijuana and alleviating their pain. Opponents tell me they're concerned this could be bad for workplaces, for employers, and also for folks that are worried about what the safety on the roads could be, and children potentially accessing marijuana as well if their parents have easier access to using that drug. Greg.
Alana Austin, and actually I got a computer right here, Alana, and it looks like the marijuana thing passed, and so did the abortion, enshrining abortion rights. Yikes, the marijuana thing, we have just unthinkingly as a country embraced that. Wow. All right. More on that as the night goes forward. Hey, Tommy Tuberville. He's awesome. And the entire swamp is out to get him. You know what he's done to the Pentagon, right? And he has every right to. He's saying, you guys don't determine law here. The people do. Details when we come back. Go Tommy! Tommy Tuberville, Republican of Alabama, the United States Senator, former football coach. He was really great at that. You know what he's saying? America is run by civilians, not by the military. And the military is playing a cute game, and he's saying, no, you got to go through us, the people. And I love this guy for doing that, you know? Tommy Tuberville actually never served in the military, and that's a good thing in this scenario. Too many people in uniform have tried to intimidate those who did not serve, saying like, well, you don't know what you're doing, you never served, so you got to do it our way. Tommy is saying, no way. The Pentagon is playing a great big game with Roe v. Wade and abortion. You know, ever since the Dobbs decision, the Pentagon came up with this basically illegal policy as an end around, right? They're granting all kinds of leave for soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines to go get abortions, right? They're paying them travel allowances to abortions. It is crazy. The people have a say in that kind of a decision. And Tommy is saying, you know what, Pentagon? If you're going to play that game, well, we could play a game here too. We're not going to promote your officers the way you usually like us to promote them. You just send up a whole big batch, 100 or so names, 500 names, 1,000 names, and we just say yay or nay on the whole group. No, let's do it one at a time. That's gotten their attention, and it's gotten the swamp's attention too. They hate him for it. Again, Tommy Tuberville, you hang in there. You've got all the right enemies on this one.
The most interesting part about this is, first of all, he picked the military, which is just amazing to me, that a Republican from Alabama, I mean, this guy has to be one of the dumbest people that have ever walked the earth in terms of political decisions. Of all places to choose, he has all these executive agencies. He chose the military, where he's going to have the least support among his party for doing what he's doing.
Claire McCaskill, this is the kind of enemy you want. And you know what? I don't care if he's the only Republican doing it. The Republicans, Americans in general, have to learn a lesson. The military reports to the people, not the other way around. They're trying to facilitate abortions. The military is, and they shouldn't be. That's up to the people. I noticed the host of that show on MSNBC, Nicole Wallace, right, in the red, is just eating it up. Oh, yeah, tell me more, Claire. Tell us more. Abortion, oh, gosh, it's such an important right. We must have more abortion. Well, this person worked in the Bush White House and was known, if you take a good look, to suck up to W, to suck up to men in power. But it was all about that, power. It wasn't about principle. I don't think it was even for W. It was about fame and power, even for W. Now, Nicole Wallace doesn't care about the issue. They don't care. That's the whole thing. Remember, Tommy, don't be intimidated. And I don't need to tell this to Tommy Tuberville. Take a look at those chairmen of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. These guys have let us down big time. Afghanistan, Iraq, they did not give the American people the straight scoop about what was going on in those wars. And how infected is our military today by these generals like, well, General Milley. This, it's going to take years to fix this.
I want to understand white rage, and I'm white, and I want to understand it.
You know what we need? We can't really do it, but a training timeout, okay? We got to tell everybody in the military to forget all of this stuff and a new beginning, something. But it just didn't start with Milley. You know, generals, senior officers have been playing a game that we're actually in charge of this country, not these elected leaders who come and go. You know, they did it to Trump, obviously, but they even do it to presidents that the media likes, like Obama. Yeah, they tried to own Obama, and they kind of did. Take a look at this.
The meetings. Obama felt disrespected and trapped. And at different times, he felt that the military was maneuvering around him. Did they think they could take a young president?
Some of them might have thought that. So you're the president who's supposed to be the decider, who's supposed to have choice, and you've got these blocks of granite out there saying, oh no, you really don't have a choice. This is the way to do it. And he was not happy.
The establishment wanted 40,000 troops, an open-ended commitment. He wanted a plan for a U.S. exit. In the end, he gave 30,000, but still the military kept pushing.
It's just, look, they do it to presidents we don't like, and they do it to presidents we like. They have to get the message. You know, Milley talked about the Constitution a lot, bragged about it, right, how he was defending the Constitution. I don't think he actually understood it. But anyway, Tommy Tuberville, I do believe he's doing the right thing. The pressure is enormous right now. Even some Republican senators are coming out and saying, we have to do this for readiness. No, they don't know what they're talking about, quite frankly. And those Republican senators, most of them have some military experience. And it's not just the issue that they're talking about. They're actually showing off. They're like, I've got military experience, and our party member, Tommy, is wrong. You're not, Tommy. And oh, by the way, I have military experience. Not to go, Tommy, and good luck. We need you on this one. And folks, we need you to get Newsmax Plus. Have you heard about it? A free trial, okay? Here's what you do, and I want to make sure I get all the facts. I got a little email here on my phone. We have 100,000 people who have already signed up. That's excellent. Newsmax Plus. It's basically it's a streaming service. Now, the trial is free. Once you're signed in, go to the Newsmax app on your TV or smartphone and start watching. And Newsmax Plus works like Netflix or other streaming services. You can watch this show, all of our other great shows, and all of our great analysts. The 2024 presidential campaign is probably going to be wild, and nobody covers it like we do. So a Newsmax Plus subscription gives you everything, everything. You got Newsmax 2, you've got Newsmax, this one, the main one, and you have our archives, you've got new documentaries, you've got interviews, you got great original content, even movies. NewsmaxPlus.com. Please check it out. It really is a bargain, and I've signed up. My family has signed up, and I suggest you do too, okay? It'll be great, and I'll be right back. Well, good night, everybody. I'm sending things over to Jen Pellegrino for the rest of the evening. Hi, Jen.
Hey, Greg. Thank you so much. Let's go over to Rob Astorino. He's at the wall. He's got a breakdown of some of the key races we're watching tonight. What do you have, Rob?
Well, let's start with Virginia. That's where everyone was kind of zoning in on to see if the House and the Senate would flip in any way. Obviously, a lot of money poured into it. Glenn Youngkin barnstormed the state. It looks right now like things might stay the same, like the Senate will be the same, and we have the House might just stay the same, which means it's just, you know, nothing ventured, nothing gained, except a lot of money. Let's look at a couple races, though. If you look in just around northern Virginia, like D.C. suburbs, this is where they hoped the battles would be. Danica Roem, transgender candidate, that's what he ran on, and he's winning by a couple points over Bill Wolf. The other race is on the 31st. Russet Perry has about a 5-point lead over Juan Segura. So those were the two hopefuls. They didn't get them, the Republicans didn't. And one interesting race, let's see, let's go over to, this is the general. Let me get up to it, Where are we here? 57. Come on, we could do it. I know I could do it. Come on. All right, here we go. Susanna Gibson, right? She was the OnlyFans, the raunchy videos. She's got a lot of fans, and they're not paying for it. They're going out to vote, and she's up by a little bit over David Owen. That would be a big win for the Republicans if they can take that. Just a couple more races. We look at Rhode Island. This was a special House district vote, and obviously it stayed with the Democrats. And in Mississippi, the governor's race, Tate Reeves is going to be reelected, a little less than the other tickets on the top of the ticket, but he's going to be reelected there.
Thank you, Mercy. Let's talk about Virginia for a minute, because Rob really outlined some of this so well. You've got a transgender candidate on the ballot against Bill Wolf, former Trump administration DOJ. We're talking about a former OnlyFans. Quick takeaways in Virginia. What's going on?
I think what's happening is you're going to see a lot of the same. It's going to be a lot more of the status quo. I know my colleague, Senator Rick Santorum, may not agree with me. He's like, Virginia's a blue state. I'm thinking more if it's a purple state. It's still very, very divided in that state. I think Republicans may lose one seat in the Senate. On the House side, I think I think they'll hold the majority. Come on, Rick, be optimistic. Throw something at me here.
Guess what? Good news here. We have a whole hour to talk about all of this, folks. But stay with us. Election night 2023 is just getting started. And welcome to Election Night 2023. I guess we're starting right now. I thought we were taking a quick break. I'm Jen Pellegrino. Rob, great to be with you.
I'm Rob Schmidt. Good to see you, Jen. Good to see you guys, everybody at the table. Nice to be here with you.
Hey, and glad to be with all of you at home. We're breaking down the results from today's major races. We're also here tonight with former White House Strategic Senior Advisor Mercedes Schlapp and former Pennsylvania Senator and presidential candidate Rick Santorum.
Election night coming to a close across the country. The results are mostly in at this point. In Virginia, we're still learning as we go here. It is an off year, as you can tell by the coverage. There are no regular congressional races, just a few gubernatorial elections. But today's results can be great insight into kind of how it's looking for 2024. We're certainly learning a lot about how Americans really feel about abortion tonight. We're going to talk about that quite a bit here. And also what appears to be just, maybe a lack of Republican interest in elections when Trump is not on the ballot.
That's right. And on our radar tonight over in Virginia, what has become a spotlight state for social issues such as education and abortion. Control of the state legislature is up for grabs. Right now, Democrats are poised to retain control in the Senate. They could even flip the House. Also tonight, two major governor's races in Mississippi and Kentucky. Democrats believe they have a shot at the governor's mansion in the red state of Mississippi. Radical Brandon Presley is the second cousin of Elvis Presley. With a socialist agenda, he's trying to oust incumbent Trump-endorsed Tate Reeves. Now, over in Kentucky, incumbent Democrat Governor Andy Beshear won his challenge against Trump-endorsed Republican State Attorney General Daniel Cameron. Republicans did win the Kentucky's Attorney General and Secretary of State races pretty easily, Rob.
Yeah, they did. On abortion, an issue that many blame for the death of the red wave that we expected in 2022, Red Ohio approving an amendment to the state constitution codifies late-term abortion. Very strong signal to the Republicans. Perhaps stay moderate on this issue next year. The heartbeat bills, I think, are proven to be a pretty big political liability. We're going to talk about that.
Yeah, there's a whole lot to unpack tonight from these races that'll really shape 2024 and beyond. So first, let's head over to Rob Astorino. He's been closely tracking all of tonight's results. Rob, what do you have for us?
Well, we'll start, I guess, with Kentucky. I won't put it on the I'm not going to put it on the board yet. It was kind of a blowout early. Then Beshear ended up winning by about 6 points. So they held in Kentucky. I want to zero in for a second on Virginia because this is where so many resources were put in to try to flip the seats and make it all red, both Senate and hold the House. And it looks like it's not going to happen. It looks like it might be status quo, which would not be a victory for the governor of Virginia. However, that's going to make it difficult for him to govern over the next 2 years. A lot of resources went in. Look at the District 30. These 30 and 31 are both in Northern Virginia, outside D.C. So a lot of government workers, a lot of liberal voters, a lot of, quote, college-educated voters. And they came out. Danica Rome in the 30th, transgender candidate, and winning by about 3 points. Also, in the 30th, right next to it, it's, 31st, Russet Perry is up by about 5 points against Segura. One interesting note, the House of Delegates. This was Susanna Gibson. That was the OnlyFans raunchy video. Pardon the pun, but she is on top by about a couple votes. So that looks like it's going to be status quo in Virginia. And let's go to Mississippi just to get the latest numbers for the governor's race. Tate Reeves leads by about 12 points right now, so it looks pretty good for him.
All right, Rob Astorino, thank you so much. We'll come back to you here in just a minute. Governor Glenn Youngkin needs to secure a GOP majority in the state legislature to pass any new laws. We want to talk about this with former Virginia Governor Bob McDonnell, who joins us tonight. Sir, it's good to have you on. We appreciate it. A lot of people saw this as a referendum on how Youngkin is doing. He's a very popular Republican. People think he might have presidential ambitions, and Virginia is a very interesting state. We don't really know what's going to happen in the House and the Senate in Virginia tonight, but what are your thoughts?
Well, Glenn's a phenomenal talent. I think he did a great job the first 2 years governing, a lot of wins. Some of them were bipartisan. But he has been absolutely everywhere, raised about $20 million on his own. The money, Rob, was unbelievable. I've never seen anything like it, with $160 or so million spent in Virginia, a lot of out-of-state money coming in. But I think what I'm seeing right now with what looks like a tough night to take back the Senate, which was the goal, that the seats in Northern Virginia that we really thought we had a chance to win, and another seat in the Richmond metro area, suburban area, we just look like we may come up a little bit short. And those three seats are going to be making a difference in the outcome. And as you pointed out, it was abortion and the policies of Glenn Youngkin largely on the ballot.
Yeah, Governor, great to have you with us tonight. You know, when you
Thanks,
look at
Jen.
that, abortion being an issue in a lot of these races we're looking at, especially in Virginia. You know, Virginians are, of course, also talking about crime, education, the economy among the issues that they're concerned about. But abortion is really driving out the Democrat vote right now. And, you know, you have this tug of war on both sides between the extreme, you know, abortion up until birth and then, you know, restricting abortion completely that's driving people out. Where is that middle ground? Because it seems that Governor Youngkin's team has found that maybe 15 weeks is where both sides can come together, and perhaps the GOP can pick up some wins at some point down the road.
You know, it's stunning how things have changed, Jen. When I ran in 2009, my opponent probably spent 60% of his money campaigning against me on abortion. And I talked about jobs, the economy, transportation, kitchen table issues. And I won by 18 points, including Northern Virginia. So look at how much that's changed. About the same kind of battle here. But I think because of the Dobbs decision, all the focus now is be putting on the states, and rightly so under our principles of federalism. But the Democrats got out early and continually and falsely claimed that this was a ban on abortion, meaning up until the time of, you know, at any point. And people bought that narrative, and it was hard to push back, even though the Democrats were favoring no restrictions up until the time of birth. Were really much more radical in that tune with Virginians. But that word ban, I think, stuck in voters' minds in some of these suburban districts. It looks like that's probably what carried the day.
What's your advice to, you know, this party, you know, going into next year on this topic? You know, obviously they need to coalesce around something strong, right? You can't have outliers calling for 6 weeks and other people like Youngkin and maybe DeSantis calling for 12 or 15. They need to coalesce around a message. What would you tell them to do to kind of nip this in the bud? Because this is going to be one of the only ways that the other side is going to be able to scare their voters into coming out, because they've effectively screwed up pretty much every other issue at this point. But if they can fearmonger this one, they might have a bit of a chance.
Rob, it's a great question because President Biden is woefully unpopular in Virginia and on all the other kitchen table issues. The messages from both Washington and the Democrats in Richmond don't seem to be carrying the day. But this issue just has much more resonance, like I said, than it did for me a while back. And I think the key is you've got to get out very early and say what you're for. And 15 weeks, honestly, is so reasonable because 98% of the abortions in Virginia already take place before 15 weeks. So it really wasn't changing the dynamic much at all. And then early on define them as being against parental notification, partial birth, abortion, parental consent, informed consent, all the things that the majority of Virginians believe in by 70% plus. We didn't probably define that well enough early, and this word ban, you know, stuck. So it's really too bad. It's a false narrative, but it seems to have prevailed in the minds of suburban women.
Well, the GOP has some work to do, certainly going forward on this messaging.
We do.
Governor Bob McDonnell, thanks so much for joining us tonight. Nice to see you.
Thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.
Well, we've got our power panel here. Let's discuss with the team. Mercy, you think about when Glenn Youngkin won election in Virginia, and you had even parents who may have voted for Biden that said, you know what, I'm voting for Youngkin because of Terry McAuliffe's stance on parents and what to say they should have in the classroom. How does the GOP build on the momentum that you saw from Youngkin? I mean, he's even built his popularity up 5% since January. How can they build on that going forward?
Look, first of all, I want to say in this particular race, I think the Democrats, what they did is in nationalizing abortion and actually bringing it into the local levels, their ads were all the same. It was all MAGA extremist, and it was all, completely extreme on abortion and banning abortion. Those fear tactics work on the Democrats. If we don't develop the fear tactics on the right of saying, have you seen the crimes in your city? Have you seen how they're trying to indoctrinate your children in terms of gender ideology? We have to fight fire with fire at this point. It's not going to work if we're just going to pretend that the economy is going to be the one issue. It is about battling it, and it's about saying, even on the abortion issue, I know people want us to, be careful talking about it. No, we have to talk about how extreme the Democrats are on the abortion issue and make that selling point as well.
But to counter that point, though, Senator, the Democrats are talking about how extreme the right is on abortion. I mean, even Donald Trump saying, hey, DeSantis was a little bit too extreme with the 6-week ban. How did they fix that?
Well, first off, the Democrats lie. Let's just be very clear about that. You heard Governor McDonald say that. They lie, and it doesn't matter what your position. We have a case of a Supreme Court candidate in Pennsylvania who very well may win tonight, but they lied. They lied about our position. They cast every Republican, no matter what it is, in the most extreme position, whether they hold it or not. So, number one, they lie. Number two, I agree with Mercy that we have to fight back. We have to fight back on abortion. We can't say, well, immigration's our issue, or this is an issue that people care about, and voters on both sides care about it. And we need to position ourselves, and we don't, because we'd rather spend money. Republicans have never been comfortable talking about abortion. Democrats, they worship at the altar of abortion. Republicans do not. They're very uncomfortable talking about it. As a result, they don't run ads on it. They run ads on crime. They run ads on inflation. They run ads but they don't run ads and go after Democrats on their extreme position because they don't like talking about abortion. We either get comfortable with talking about this issue and start putting money behind it, or we're going to continue to lose elections.
Where should the party come together? What's the limit? They should all come out there and try to maybe pass something in Congress.
It all depends on the state. I mean, in Congress, on the state, I mean, Louisiana is going to be different than California. It's going to be different than New York. It's going to be different than then you
Kentucky. You let them mess with that mess. They're going to pick the most stringent one.
That's called federalism. I mean, that's what we believe in. I mean, but we need to defend their extremism. And that's what we're not doing. That's what Republicans are not doing. And if Republicans don't do that, we're going to lose elections.
Yeah, we need a much stronger early voting process. We keep falling behind. You were looking at those numbers in Pennsylvania, and you were like, they're way ahead the Democrats are in terms of early voting.
The early vote in Pennsylvania was like 80% Democrat.
Or Mercedes, what will it take to get Republicans behind the early voting?
I mean, this is, look, we need a lot of money. It takes a lot of money to put this infrastructure in place. The Democrats keep outspending us. The dark money behind the Democrats is what pushes so much of this early voting process in place. Republicans at this point have not been able to compete.
Well, this should serve as a wake-up call, because there's not a lot of time left. 1 year till we'll be doing election night round 2, big one. All right, folks, don't go anywhere. We've got more results from today's major elections across the country coming up right after the break.
All right, welcome back. All eyes on the state of Ohio. The state's ballot measure to enshrine abortion rights into the Constitution. It's a big topic. They've also tethered it to this legalization of marijuana to really boost up the chances for the abortion plan. Alana Austin is live in Columbus, Ohio tonight with more on that. Alana.
Hi, good evening, Rob. And we've been speaking with voters all day here in the Columbus area. And the vast majority of them told us they would be voting yes on issue 1 because they did not want the government involved in these issues. Now, we're here from Protect Women Ohio, and the leaders here say they are absolutely heartbroken by tonight's results, and they feel that there was millions and millions of dollars spent by left-wing groups that were trying to usher in dramatic changes here in the state of Ohio and beyond. Now, they also say that their work in the pro-life issue will not end here. They will pick up that work tomorrow, no matter what the odds are. Now, this amendment is expected to take effect within the next 30 days. Folks here say they will continue, whatever it takes, fighting for Ohioans, women, children, and especially the unborn. Opponents of issue 1 said they're worried this will open the door to late-term abortion and loss of parental rights. Mehek Cook, a legal expert and spokesperson for Protect Women Ohio, tells me she is very worried about what issue 1 will mean going forward.
In the state of Ohio today, it's 22 weeks with exception. So this is very broad. It's very extreme. We've worked very hard. And I am grateful to Governor Mike DeWine, who has come out strong and said, issue 1 is too radical. Pro-life, pro-choice, somewhere in between. This should not pass for Ohio. This is not common sense.
Ohio is also on track to legalize recreational marijuana. We heard from some folks today who say they voted yes on this because they want to see more people who have medical conditions have easier access to this drug to alleviate pain. But we also heard from a number of folks who said they would be voting no because they think it could be dangerous for the roads, dangerous for children to potentially have easier access to marijuana, and also for workplaces to have a harder time hiring folks. So those were some of the arguments we heard. I'd also like to mention a moment that I heard from several different folks who were coming out from voting. They said that they remembered the 10-year-old girl last year who her parents took her to the state of Indiana after she was impregnated and raped by a 28-year-old man. This was a girl from Franklin County here. So a lot of people remembered that moment after Ohio's governor signed into law a 6-week abortion ban. Now that law has been held up in the courts. It'll be moot at this point, but that was a moment that a lot of voters, including a couple of Republicans, told me made them vote yes on issue 1.
All right, Alana Austin, thank you so much for that report. Let's bring it back here to our panel now. So we're looking at, obviously, the issues of abortion and marijuana in the state of Ohio now. Now 50%, over 50% of the country has legalized marijuana. Senator, you look at these issues that are driving the left out to vote. You would think the economy, crime, illegal immigration, those would be some of the issues driving people out when you look at so many who are unsatisfied with the direction the country's headed in. But apparently that's not it.
Remember, these elections, off-year elections, odd-number elections, are very low turnout elections. They are base elections. And the Democrats have traditionally, number one, outspent us, not just in odd-number year elections, but generally speaking, number one. And number two, their base is more ginned up to go out and vote generally than Republicans. We've seen this now for the last several years. And so a base election, Democrats outspend, and you put very sexy things like abortion and marijuana on the ballot, and a lot of young people come out and vote. It was a secret sauce for disaster in Ohio. I don't know what they were thinking, but that's why I thank goodness that most of the states in this country don't allow you to put everything on the ballot, because pure democracies are not the way to run a country.
So then to the senator's point, Mercy, what do you think this means for what we can expect in 2024? I mean, should there be some concern?
Absolutely, there should be concerns. When you're looking at a state like Ohio, which has been trending Republican, and all of a sudden you're seeing them become the next state to legalize recreational marijuana, obviously go extreme on this issue of abortion, it really raises a lot of questions in terms of how Republicans can find a way to fund a lot of these ballot initiatives that Republicans have been losing along the way. I mean, just alone in this abortion amendment in Ohio, Democrats spent $24.6 million versus $16.3 million. So there you see the gap when it comes to the money. So look, as you're going into the next year, I think the Democrats are going to hone in on abortion, again, being that one issue. They thought it worked in 2022. It works in this off-year election, and they're going to be like, the world could be crumbling,
and yet it will all be about
abortion in many of these swing states.
Let's talk about marijuana for a second. I mean, I smoked pot in high school and college. I think a lot of people did.
I think Bill Clinton also smoked. He never inhaled.
But it's really sad to see that they are going to take. I mean, this drug is powerful.
Right.
They have engineered this drug, and I say this all the time.
For those
This
of
is
you
not the same pot.
who are my age,
from the 60s.
It's not the same pot.
It's not the same drug. This stuff will put you on the moon, and they're legalizing it, and everybody's going to have access to this everywhere. You're going to have a whole generation of people. I mean, we were just talking about New York. You walk down the street, it's everywhere. You smell it all over the place.
Washington, and all the major cities now.
These kids are going to be half in a coma all day long. I mean, a lot of these kids wake up and smoke first thing in the morning.
That's
do we want to have a whole generation of people raised on a drug that powerful?
Look at these cities where you're watching, for example, individuals addicted to heroin, cocaine.
Right.
they cannot recover. They cannot get, they're addicted, and it's created this cycle of drug addicts and people that really are just having, it's a horrible for the cities. It's horrible for these individuals.
It's a really bad road to go down.
That's where we're headed. All right.
All right. Well, we'll be right back with more coverage, and we're going to really hone in on what's going on in Virginia. That's after the break. Stay tuned.
Welcome back, everyone. Well, the results from tonight's races foreshadow what the major issues will be in 2024. Rob Astorino has the polls that are Americans' top concerns right now. Tell us about it, Rob.
Well, according to a recent Ipsos ABC News poll, voters trust Republicans to do a better job on things like immigration, 36-24 over Democrats, the economy, 35-25 over Dems, and Republicans have a 14-point advantage on inflation, 32-20 or 34-20. On crime, they're trusted to do a better job, and also on the Israel-Hamas war. Meanwhile, though, voters say Democrats would do better on things like abortion. We're seeing that tonight in Ohio. Climate change, health care, gun violence, and education. So the big one was abortion, and that turned out to be very true tonight.
All right. Thank you for that, Rob.
All right, let's discuss more on these two races with former governor of Wisconsin, Scott Walker. Sir, good to have you on tonight. Just give us your top-line thoughts as we look at the full landscape of what we've seen this evening.
Well, more than anything, money prevails. Mercedes just talked about it a moment ago in Ohio, but if you look in Kentucky, even in a red state where statewide candidates for Attorney General and Secretary of State won big, but the governor's race went Democrat, big advantage for the Democrat incumbent there. In Ohio, a major advantage, about $8 million on the side that won there on the abortion referendum. You look in every major race, the one exception being the state of Mississippi, where the Republican has a slight advantage, and even there it's too close to call. But in Virginia, in New Jersey, in the state legislative races, in race after race after race, money is on the side of the left. That's not big-time D.C. money. That's small dollar, progressive, radical, whatever you want to call it, driven small dollar donations. And right now, that's the advantage that they have. And it's why they're able to push issues like abortion, even though the economy is #1 in the minds of voters, even with young people like the people we work with at Young America's Foundation. They still in college list the economy as #1, and yet that's not penetrating when the advantage of money is on the side of the left.
Yeah, and we see that abortion really is driving voters, Governor. We saw it in the midterms. We saw it this evening as well, obviously. And Senator Santorum saying, you know, Republicans just need to get comfortable talking about the issue. They haven't been. Do you agree with that? I mean, how does the messaging need to change? I mean, we're critically a year out from the general election, and I think a lot of people might be concerned by the results they've seen tonight.
Well, two things. One, I think Rick's right. You need to personalize it. So make it personal, not just something that people are uncomfortable talking about, but talk about it in real terms. But the other part goes back to what I was just saying, money. You look last fall, there was a red wave. It was with Republican governors. Every Republican governor up on the ballot last November won convincingly, even though almost every one of them had strong pro-life records, including Governor DeWine in the state of Ohio, where the referendum went the way it did today. He's a strong pro-life governor, and yet he won by 25 points with more than a 1 million vote margin in a very competitive state. So what that showed me is that people who've got a forward vision, who aren't just running on one issue, can win. I think that's the positive takeaway from the otherwise sour results tonight, is that candidates have to raise and parties have to raise enough money to be competitive. When they do, then you can shift the debate back to things like the economy, which is top of voter mind.
And let's talk about Mississippi for a moment. I believe we've got the latest numbers here. Incumbent Governor Republican Tate Reeves, we're at, what is that, 56%? That screen is small, 56 to 43% with Presley. Your takeaways as we watch this race that many are saying could be close?
Well, I think the key factor here is the largest county where the state capital is at. A judge ordered the polls to be open for an hour longer because of some ballot questions. So we need to watch that very closely. I've seen that in Wisconsin. I know Rick's seen that sort of thing in Pennsylvania, other states where these big cities, there's big issues with the ballots, and you got to watch where those votes come at the last minute out there. I still think he can win, but remember in Mississippi, like you have in other states like was a state we just had last month where Louisiana elected a Republican without a runoff. Here, if he doesn't get 50% of the vote, there is a runoff. So he's got to win. I think he's on track to do that, but we're going to have to watch where those last votes come in at.
Governor, can I ask you a question? I threw this at Santorum during the commercial break. He didn't bite on it, but I wanted to ask you, it feels to me like this is not really an election. It feels to me like this is an election that might be more of a motivator for Democrats. I feel like it signals to me that there would be a greater turnout for them. I think they have better issues in this one. If people that are worried right now about what tonight signals, as we're not seeing Republicans perform too well, but it seems to me that a night that's a lot about abortion, that's, they throw in the weed thing in Ohio to kind of juice it up with the younger people. We know how they're going to vote. I don't know that this was really a fair fight, and certainly it didn't have a lot of inspiration for the right.
Rob, you're right, and it gives a temporary reprieve to those vultures circling around Joe Biden. Remember, just a few days ago, we saw a poll come out that showed in 5 of the 6 top battleground states, Donald Trump head-to-head with Joe Biden wins if the election was held today. You saw David Axelrod, in response to that, start laying the groundwork for possibly other Democrats calling for Joe Biden to get out of the race. I think tonight's results in key states give him a bit of a reprieve, but I still think, again, you look at a Trump Biden rematch, if that were to happen, and I think everything suggests it's on track to do that. Money is not a factor in those races because everybody knows Joe Biden, everybody knows Donald Trump. Then it boils down to who do you think is the most competent to take care of the issues care about. And things like the economy and safety and the border do become prominent issues in that sort of a campaign, which I think restores the balance of an advantage towards a Republican, in this case, former President Donald Trump.
All right, Governor Scott Walker, so glad to have you here tonight to weigh in. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
And folks, we've been talking about it a lot. As you know, Newsmax Plus just launched. It's Newsmax's new streaming app that lets you watch Newsmax on your home TV or on your smartphone anytime, anywhere. If you're a regular cable or satellite subscriber, you can continue watching Newsmax just like you're doing right now. Nothing changes. But many people love Newsmax Plus. In fact, in just a few days, more than 100,000 people have signed up. They're like you. They're tired of the big media, and they really like Newsmax. You should sign up for a free trial to Newsmax. Go to newsmaxplus.com to sign in. The trial is free. Once you're signed in, go to the Newsmax app on your home TV or on your smartphone and start watching. Newsmax Plus works just like Netflix and other Plus services, so you can watch Rob Schmidt tonight and our other great shows with Greta Van Susteren, Greg Kelly, Eric Bolling. And you can continue to see all of our great guests like Mike Huckabee, Carrie Lake, and Alan Dershowitz, Rick Santorum, who's here tonight, Dick Morris, and so many more.
The 2024 presidential race is basically started right now, so get the latest news in the race for the White House. A Newsmax Plus subscription gives you our show archives, great news specials with former President Trump, stories about the Biden administration, history, current affairs programs help you inform and educate your family. Newsmax Plus is growing. It's going to be really big, so download the Newsmax app on your home phone, your smartphone, home TV. Start watching. Start with a free trial. There's no risk. If you like us, you can continue. A monthly subscription costs less than most of the drinks at Starbucks, which is really sad for Starbucks, but that's the way it is. So get started today. Go to newsmaxplus.com, sign up for the free trial. I subscribed. I'm telling my friends to do it as well. Hope you sign up too. And let's get to some breaking news with that tonight, because we've had a very interesting night over at the House, which has censured Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib over her blatant lies regarding what's been happening in Israel and the Israeli response to the terror attacks from a month ago, and also her anti-Semitic remarks as well. They have censured Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib.
An issue that really has Democrats quite divided right now. Folks, don't go anywhere. We're going to break down a lot more of tonight's major election results after the break.
What would you do if you saw someone choking? Somebody help me! If you're like this man, you would get the LifeVac device you keep in your car for this very reason. I'm Arthur Lee, inventor of LifeVac, which is made right here in the USA. Just place, push, and pull. It's that simple.
Look at that, buddy.
LifeVac suction removes the obstruction, saving a life, like over 1,000 lives already saved by LifeVac. Be a hero. Call LifeVac now for your life-saving device at 877-LifeVac or go to lifevac.net.
Are you a military veteran with mesothelioma? Do you have questions about VA benefits or medical treatment and bills? Call for a free book at 1-800-664-2000 or go to mesobook.com.
The first time Wounded Warrior Project came into my life was probably the day after I came out of my coma. It was my parents, my doctors, and then it was the Wounded Warrior Project.
My injury was a tremendous loss. You used to be the super dad, and now you're not gonna be able to see your daughter grow up and see her happy face.
Returning from the battlefield, Wounded Warrior Project kept many of us from unraveling into further despair.
It's now been 20 years since Wounded Warrior Project was created to serve those veterans injured on or after 9/11. Please call or go online with your gift of just $19 a month.
All right.
I can remember when we first connected with Wounded Warrior Project. I remember it like it was last week. It was 15 years ago. But we needed help. They came in and stuck by this kid's side.
Your monthly gifts make Wounded Warrior Project possible. Wounded Warrior Project is able to provide critically needed programs and services that empower our warriors and their families on their journey towards recovery.
Wounded Warrior Project gave me all the tools I needed to cope with being blind.
This organization is the reason my kids still have a dad. Hug? Can you give me hugs?
Please call or go online with your gift of $19 a month, and we will send you this limited edition 20th anniversary blanket.
They just didn't come in the door and speak to us and leave. They came in and stuck by this kid's side.
Our work has just begun. Join us with your gift and supporting our injured veterans. Call or go online right now.
All right, welcome back. Virginia voters deciding which party will hold the majority in the state legislature. The results could be a bellwether for elections across the country in 2024, even the presidential race. So far, both chambers are still up in the air, but Democrats appear to be having a pretty strong night in Virginia. We want to talk about that with former Virginia Attorney General Ken Cuccinelli on with us. And sir, it's good to have you on. We appreciate it. What do you make of the results so far? It looks like potentially Democrats could take both houses. How do you see it?
Yeah, unfortunately, the bellwether races I was looking at are not going the way we need them to hold the House and win the Senate. And some of the folks getting elected in the, for instance, outer Northern Virginia suburbs on the Democrat side are very radical folks. And, you know, it's not your grandparents' Democrats anymore. These are hard Marxists and some cultural radicals, transgender candidate and so forth. And that's against, for instance, in that race, in a candidate where you've got Virginia's leading, in the last 20 years, leading human trafficking fighter in Bill Wolf. And, you know, that is a very concerning development. I know Glenn Youngkin has put everything he's got into these races, and it's not looking like it's enough.
Yeah, Bill Wolf, a great candidate. I interviewed him when he was working for Trump's DOJ and focused on human trafficking.
Right.
What happened in Virginia? You know, you think about Glenn Youngkin flipping the seat in gubernatorial race in 2021, the momentum he's built even over the last year. What's happening in the state of Virginia? Is Virginia now a blue state going forward?
Well, it certainly has been a lean blue state for about 10 years, obviously with Jason Miyares at the AG level, Winsome Sears, and Glenn Youngkin sweeping in 21. It's not a foregone conclusion that it's a blue state, but some of these districts that Republicans have to win have crept to the left, have gotten very tough, and the Dems are doing a slightly better job of turning out voters than the Republicans are right now, and that's something that we're going to have to get better than them at. Otherwise, we're not going to win, whether that's early voting, which none of us like, but it exists for 45 days in Virginia. And, you know, Glenn Youngkin pushed very hard to get folks to vote early. My whole family voted early. That's not what we're used to doing necessarily on the Republican side, but we're trying to bank those votes and generate more, and they don't appear to be generating enough more votes to offset the Democrat turnout right now. But
Kennedy, it looks like
I do think Virginia is a bit more blue, but people should know why. We border D.C. The growth of the federal government has imported a massive number of big government liberals into Northern Virginia, and that's been a bipartisan occurrence. And until that's turned around, until we have a president who will say no to more spending, and we have not had that. But Joe Biden, Donald Trump, Barack Obama, George Bush, none of them have said no to that spending massive increases. We need that.
It looks like the Senate, the state Senate in Virginia, it appears at this point, it's not called yet, but it looks like it is going to be blue. Right. I think 21 seats at this point in the Senate there. As far as, you know, it does seem like the Republican Party generally has a real problem with winning. You know, it certainly was in the midterms here and now in this one as well. And you wonder, do we have the right people in place to be putting the messaging together to the people that are supposed to be there to get the early vote out, to do these jobs? You wonder about the RNC. Do we have the right people running the show? Because we're not doing something right. I think that's very obvious.
Yeah, I think, Rob, I think you're right in a lot of places. I would say these state level races, RNC doesn't really play a role in voter turnout. That's run by the team on the ground, and that in Virginia is led by Glenn Youngkin. And he made an admirable effort to push more Republicans to get out earlier and vote, with the ultimate goal of having more people voting for Republican candidates. But it's not been enough. Where this has happened, and then last year we were looking for a red wave across the country, something we all talked about together, and it only happened in one place, and that's Florida. And Governor DeSantis led that red wave, and he won women, independents, and Hispanics. And Brian Kemp, to a lesser extent, in Georgia, neighboring, both swing states. So it can be done. There are leaders who've done it, but they've been few and far between across the country in the last 5 years for the Republican side. We need to pick winners, we need to support winners, and then we need to execute.
All right, Ken Cuccinelli, thanks so much for being part of our election coverage tonight. Appreciate your time.
Next time, hopefully, we'll talk good news, right?
I certainly hope so, yes. Let this be a lesson. We're all taking notes for 2024. Let's continue this conversation with our panel. And Mercy, I kept looking off to the side here because I see you nodding with everything Ken had to say. What are your takeaways?
Well, first of all, Texas was another one of those red states that pulled off a victory back during the midterm elections as well, just like Florida. Very strong governors in both of those states. Look, I think for Virginia, Governor Glenn Youngkin should feel really disappointed. They worked so hard to try to change the map here in these competitive seats. But I will tell you, in those state Senate seats in Virginia, they were mostly in areas where it was Biden +6 back in 2020. It was going to be tough to win those seats, but they felt
that these people not have buyer's remorse, though?
It's because when it's local races, it's so different, especially an off-year presidential race, where people that would have maybe gone out to vote for the presidential candidate stayed home because there's not as much focus on it when it's a off-year presidential race. So so basically, I think for Virginia, it is about those hardcore activists, and I think that we've been talking about abortion all night, unfortunately, but that really drove out a lot of those leftist types of voters.
He said that some of these people are very radical. That have been voted in. I just that's.
But that's where the Democrat Party has shifted, right? Now we have AOC is now starting to even look like a moderate amongst all these crazy progressives.
Right.
But you know you're seeing that happening in Virginia as well, where you're having these, what I would say, not your normal type of Democrats or moderate Democrats winning. These are radicalized Democrats that they're supporting. But what's the message they're pushing? MAGA extremist and extreme on abortion. And those fear tactics keep working on the Democrat side. Republicans are going to, I said this before, fight fire with fire. You know, we have to be aggressive and really bring that message out and get our voters out and get them motivated to vote, even when it's not a presidential year.
And Rob, we're obviously talking a lot about abortion tonight, again, being the big topic that's driving a lot of the Democrats out to vote. Is there anything we're missing that we haven't touched on that's standing out to you?
Well, it's a crazy night. The Republicans won a city council race in the Bronx.
Yes, that's
right. And they couldn't win the governor's race in Kentucky. So it's kind of a weird night. I think there's a lot of postmortem on this. Abortion, definitely, but the suburban areas where Republicans have got to win back. Northern Virginia, just think 87,0and new IRS agents are coming on. They're all going to be going in Northern Virginia,
I
right?
hope not. That means they'll be in my backyard.
We're getting out.
Exactly.
It's an interesting night. I think there's some wins for both teams, but abortion, you cannot play defense. I totally agree. And when you're explaining, you're losing.
Yeah. That's right. And I just want to add on that Kentucky race. Let's remember, there's only been 2 Republican governors in the last 50 years. And you know, the current governor, he has name recognition, huge name recognition, and
So
won
unusual.
in Trump country. Yeah. So, you know, it
hard to
shows
wrap
you.
your head around that,
Yes.
where it's 20 points up for Trump, such a red state, yet they
Right.
love
Well,
this
state
Democrat
elections are
governor.
different than federal elections. They're just different, very
That's
different.
right. All right, we are. There's been some incredible polls that have come out in the last few days. I think we've reported on that extensively. We're going to cover those coming up next. Stay tuned.
Welcome back, everyone. Well, tonight, races across the country providing a major litmus test for both parties with less than 1 year to go before the 2024 election. In Virginia, we see Democrats appear to have retained the Senate. They look poised to flip the House as well. This while dismal new polling for Joe Biden is sowing doubts within his own party about his bid for a second term. According to the latest Siena New York Times poll, Trump is leading Biden in 5 of 6 swing states. Here to break all of this down is Trump pollster John McLaughlin. John, glad to have you with us tonight. You know, obviously we're watching things play out tonight, and there's a contrast between people who are not so happy with the direction of the country, but, you know, they're coming out and still voting for Democrats. What do you make of the results that we're seeing?
Well, in these local races, you've got local incumbents winning. And although the Republican voters have overwhelmingly embraced Donald Trump, where he's winning with over 50, 60% of the primary vote, the Republican establishment has not. And a lot of these candidates, they don't ask him to campaign for him, and he could certainly get out far more votes than they could, because you've got, even tonight as we're here, CNN says Trump's up 49 to 44%.
Yeah.
Our last national poll was 48-43. You've got the New York Times saying he's won, CBS saying he's up 51-48. I mean, it's a shock to me. I'm used to saying these polls are underpolling Trump people and Donald Trump's ahead. But he's running on issues, strong issues, national issue contrast. Biden's got us in the wrong direction. Inflation's too high. Crime is up. The border's out of control. There's war in Ukraine and the Middle East. And it's a big contrast between Trump and Biden. You know, in these local races, the incumbent won in Kentucky, the incumbent governor's ahead in Mississippi, the incumbent state senators got reelected in Virginia. In New York, where Rob Asserini was talking about, the Republicans are winning in Long Island. They're winning for county exec. They're up in Nassau County, up in the Hudson Valley. They're winning. So you've got, you know, there's local races running on local issues. In the big national debate, Trump is beating Joe Biden, and that's what counts for the Republican Party.
Well said, John McLaughlin. Thanks for the insight. We appreciate it,
Thank
sir.
you, John.
Going to have our final thoughts coming up here after the break. Stay tuned.
And we are back with the panel tonight to recap the most significant results from today. And I'm just going to pass it over to you, Senator. You want to talk about the Keystone State Supreme Court race there?
Yeah, all the other races we've been talking about tonight are in states that are not in play in a presidential election. The one state that's in play in a presidential election that had a major election tonight was Pennsylvania. They had a Supreme Court race, which Republicans felt they had a decent chance. It was tough, but they had a decent chance of winning. They didn't win. Right now, 90% of the vote in, they're down 5%. They also thought they had a chance of winning a very important county, I know this sounds weird, but a county executive race in Allegheny County. Allegheny County, it's Pittsburgh, 2-1 Democratic by registration.
Tell us why the Supreme Court race is so important, though. Why does that matter so much?
Okay, well, let me finish that.
Yeah, sure.
So we lost, the Republicans lost that race by less than 2 points. So it was very close, came close, didn't win. The Supreme Court's important. Number one, it's a generic race. It just sort of shows where the Republican, you can talk about all these polls showing Trump ahead or some. What matters is who comes out, who votes, and polls really don't do a very good job of showing that. Mm-hmm. Who came out in this election? Democrats. They outspent Republicans. They outturned out Republicans. They outworked Republicans, and they won every significant election tonight. Yep. So tonight is going to keep Joe Biden very comfortable in the Democratic Party for another at least several months.
Do you think he'll be comfortable in Pennsylvania 2024?
From these results, I'd feel better if I would rather be Biden than Trump.
Wow. All right.
That's a tough way to end the show.
I'd rather be Trump than Biden.
I think I'd rather it too. That's all the time we have for tonight. We'll see you back here tomorrow morning.
All right. Have a